just after watching film, were you able to find some clarity in where the offense kind of stalled on Saturday?
I think we definitely got to improve. I think we were too conservative. I think we've got to improve. And then, I didn't think the offensive line played well. I didn't think the running backs played well. I didn't think the quarterbacks played well. I didn't think in particular, the outside receivers played well. I think we finished the game and found a way to win, which I don't think hardly any other teams in the country would have done. So I think there's a portion of that separates us from most other teams in the country. I don't think there's any question about that because they would have given up the ghost a long time ago. But no, I didn't think we played well on offense. We got to play better, and we got to demand more out of those guys. And like I mentioned before, some of those cats may be, reading all the nice stuff you say about them, but our line saunters around like they accomplished something. They haven't accomplished anything up to this point. So
Tyler seems to have this ability to kind of play loose. Do you think that helps you guys late in the game when kind of cards were stacked against you?
I think Tyler's a quality player. I think Tyler's a quality player. I think Luke is too. And then, and then I also think that we played better there down the stretch. Of course, trying to get out of the hole.
Do you think Luke at times has struggled against teams that boast an aggressive front seven like Boise State?
Well, I didn't view him as that aggressive of a front seven, so I don't even agree with your hypothesis. But no, I haven't found any of that to be the case.
What was the original reason for inserting Tyler in the third quarter prior to Luke getting hurt?
Well, I wanted Luke to see how easy it was out there, which it was till Tyler tried to do too much, and then after that, then we held Luke for precautionary reasons and reasons of our own that we're certainly not going to share with you, and then Tyler played real well. So, and then Tyler was hot, and so we kept him in.
What is it that Tyler's shown you in practice that makes you think he's ready to go in a situation like that?
I think he's had a great debut for a guy. Played against Arizona, had incredible numbers there, and then he played. Then had a big one the other night. I think one is learning under Luke's been incredibly beneficial to him, and then he's just steadily improved through practice and all of it.
Where did your trust begin with Tyler and allowing him to get into the game? Did it start last year, or?
Probably, that's. I'd say probably midway through last year, maybe. Before this last spring. This last spring just kind of verified all the things I'd suspected. So it was, I would say, somewhere between the year before's camp and mid-season is what I'd say.
What in particular was the Boise defensive line doing to give the O-line so much trouble?
Lining up and just whipping them. Okay, so like if you were ever in a fight to handicap, would any one of our offensive linemen, so pick whoever you think our best offensive lineman is. Okay, if there was a fight to the death and you were to clean out this room and there were no rules whatsoever to be applied, so you pick out whoever happens to be your favorite of our offensive linemen, whoever you think's the toughest. Now, whoever's the softest of that Boise State D-line, you bring him in here, okay? And all that's going to be left of our offensive lineman is a grease spot in the end. Okay, because that Boise State D lineman will smoke our offensive lineman so bad, it'll be embarrassing. And if you don't believe me, just turn on that game the other night and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
The offensive line was kind of heralded coming into the season. Do you think maybe some of that went to their heads?
Well, it turns out, based on what I saw, it's false. So, I mean, did it go to their head? It could have. It was clearly false. It's clearly not true. So, You know, I mean, they can prove it otherwise, but they haven't this year. You know, and Boise's not the only D-line that beat up on them. I thought the Montana State D-line beat up on them too, but that's just me. Maybe somebody saw something else in the game.
A couple of shovel passes that turned into interceptions in the game. Were you surprised by that, considering how simple you showed it to them?
Well, when they're broken plays, they weren't shuttle passes. I mean, it turned out that way, guy trying to do too much, but that's not how it started.
I was just to say, entering the Oregon State game between Luke and Tyler, is there a quarterback competition this week entering the game, or is Luke still the guy of this team?
No, Luke's playing. Luke's starting and, continue to play well, I'm sure.
Can you empathize at all with some of the recent scrutiny and backlash Coach Gary Anderson received from local fans and media entities of late?
And I don't know. I mean, like if you have an example, I haven't heard anything. I don't really follow it. I think they're lucky to have Gary Anderson. I think that, I think they're lucky to have him. I think he does a good job.
Do you anticipate leveraging your offensive strategy this week to be more along the lines of running the ball, since a lot of opponents have had a good deal of success against the Beavers in that regard?
I mean, we're going to try to run it some. If our offensive linemen get pounded again, we'll probably run it less. So we'll see. We'll see if they're as tough as the Oregon State D line. Because we already know Boise State's D line's tougher than them.
Coach, what do you think? In your view, did you think Luke was being a little too tentative in the first half and not making the throws that he should have been making?
Yeah, I thought he played slow. I thought he definitely played slow. I thought he played slow and conservative.
And then also, with Oregon State, I know they haven't had the best of starts to the season, but do you see similarities with that program as you guys were when you came in, sort of in the middle there, where you had sort of gotten competitive, but you just weren't pulling out wins there?
I don't know. I don't look at their program. I look at our program. I analyze our program. I think, I think they got quality coaches. I know they got some quality players, recruiting wise, that we tried to get, and and how it all comes together, I'm not sure. I mean, I just barely started the film, so I'll watch more all night tonight. But the fact that they didn't have the start that they would have hoped, I don't think really diminishes the quality of players they have. I think sometimes teams just have to come together and play together.
Their quarterback maybe seemed a little under-recruited in high school. He played in a run-heavy offense. Were you guys aware of him? Was he on your guys' radar?
Yeah, he's on our radar. We had other guys, and I don't remember the exact year, but he was on our radar. I do remember that. And then somebody either committed or something. I don't remember the exact scenario. Well, let's go ahead and look what year he is. So who would that have been? Well, so we had Helinski already, and we're very pleased with that. Okay.
When you talk about Luke having kind of a slow start, was it a mix of that, but also kind of the wide receivers not getting open for him?
I think it was everything. I didn't think our receivers released well. I think our offensive line got pounded on. I think that our running backs didn't run upfield. I think our running backs were well below average. I didn't think they blocked well. I didn't think they hit the hole very hard. And then I think our quarterback didn't make particularly quick decisions, and tried to live on a steady diet of all these runs and just little stuff. I thought we bunted and check swinged for about 3/4 of the game.
And you talked about last week your offensive line is like a very coordinated or choreographed position. It's really technical? How do you go about fixing those problems other than, I mean, is there anything outside of?
I think they're somewhat choreographed. They just don't mind. They just don't mind getting their ass kicked. You know, it appears to kind of appeal to them, and hopefully they're only doing it on an experimental basis. You know, and it's a phase or a stage they'll come out of. But no, right now they don't mind getting their ass kicked, and so anyway, we'll see how long that goes for. I mean, any given team, it should be the toughest position. I wish I could say that about ours.
Luke doesn't have a ton of down games. Could you kind of tie in his performance against Minnesota last year around the same as?
Well, I didn't think as a whole team we played together particularly well, but I don't care about Minnesota. None of that really applies to today. I mean, any more than the Oregon game does, which we were one of the most explosive teams on earth. I mean, let's talk about the Oregon game. I mean, we're going to try to get Luke to be exactly like he was in the Oregon game. How's that?
Any questions on the phone line for Coach?
Hey, Coach, it's Beth Lowe. With the running backs, Gerard Wicks got one carry. He scored on that carry. I guess, was there any thought to putting him in the game sooner? It seems like he's gotten fewer carries this year.
Well, I think we play, you go through camp and you go through all that, and we have Morrow and James Williams ahead of him. I didn't think either of them played particularly well, in particular James. I thought Morrow had two great plays at the end, but he didn't block well the entire day. And then, how much difference could Wicks have done? There's a point to where, Wicks needs to win that spot in practice. And then, of course, now, at the rate things are going, those other guys are going to have to find a way to hold on to it. But, we got three backs. You try to put the reps in the guys that are playing the best, and now they're playing musical chairs because I don't think we had just a great intense performance out of them last week. And other than down the stretch.
Would you say that you guys have evolved so that you have now a preference for using two backs more than the three that you did last year?
I don't understand the question.
Well, last year it seemed like you repped three backs in your rotation on game days. This year you're talking about how Morrow and Williams have really gotten the majority of reps in games because they've done better in practice. Have you guys just moved away from the thought of using three backs in games?
Well, we did rep three backs, but there was always a guy that got less rotation than the other two. And then, of course, over the year it evolves, But I don't have a great way to play three backs because this isn't PE. This isn't PE where, everybody gets to do push-ups, sit-ups, and then in the end, everybody gets to play. So, if you want to play, you're gonna have to win your reps out there on the field, and that's just the way it is. And then we'll go ahead and rep them accordingly. But you guys can have a fan vote. Everybody can vote on how they think it should rep and how often we should rep a guy. And as fascinating as that would be, we'll go ahead and rep them however we feel like anyway.
Now that you've seen the film from last week's game, I mean, are there maybe two or three specific things that you felt like Luke can do a lot better going into this week?
From the film? Well, I think he's got to be more decisive. He wants to overanalyze everything, and we're not looking for a guy that overanalyzes everything. We're looking for a guy that executes. And bottom line, us as coaches got to do a lot better coaching. I mean, I've highlighted a bunch of problems with players. I mean, most of the problems lie with us as coaches. I mean, our failure to coach them well enough to get the results that we want. And so we need to do a better job of that this week, starting with me in particular as coaches.
And the reps between him and Tyler Helinski in practice, what has been sort of the rep share, and is that proportion going to change in any way this week?
Not going to change. Going to stay the same.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the line for Coach?
Hey, Coach. This is Jessamine McIntyre, sideline reporter. I'm just checking in on the defensive side of the ball. Peyton Pallure named Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Week. What did you see from him?
I thought he was really aggressive the whole day. I mean, he had that interception that, was at a key time and kind of a captivating play. But in particular, he played steady the entire day. He'd been extremely physical the whole day, the entire time. And I thought Peyton had honestly pounded one ball carrier and blocker after the next, and I thought he really played well.
Anybody else on the defensive side stand out to you particularly that we might not be aware of?
Yeah, well, Hercules, I thought. Frankie Louvu did. I thought Frankie Louvu had a really good game. Frankie Louvu probably had the best game that he's had. I mean, there were a lot of guys that played well, I thought. Thought Hunter Dale really did some good things. Jalen Thompson played well. I'm sure I'm leaving somebody out, but those guys.
Thanks, Coach.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the line for Coach? Okay, and back in the room?
Mike, do you know yet if any of your Florida kids have been affected by the hurricane?
I haven't heard. I haven't heard yet, and of course that was kind of unfolding. Sounded like it grazed Miami, and then now it's heading towards Tampa, which I think Keith Harrington's from up that way. Lighter winds, but more water vulnerability. But I don't think they were dramatically.
Your place in Key West is? Have you got any of
Had heard by second hand that it's in good shape, that most stuff in Key West is. No cell service down there, so kind of word of mouth. If somebody gets an email to somebody who passes it on to somebody, and not even necessarily my place specifically, but just in general. It hit kind of Cujo to Marathon, they said, is where it really tore stuff up.
Coach, kind of back toward Oregon State. I know you haven't watched a ton of film on them yet, but anything stand out in particular?
I just they're an emerging team because they have good-looking players and they run around well. And they run around well. At some point, they're gonna really click and play together well. And and so we got to go out there and play our best game. And most importantly, in our case, we got to. We want to be a week better. We want to improve a full week this week, and I think that's important for us to do.
And though it wasn't like your favorite performance by your team, the fact that they were able to stay resilient, does that?
Oh, I don't think. Look, out of 130 teams, there isn't 15 that would have had that comeback. So our team does deserve credit for that. But we also deserve a certain amount of credit for, what led to that, the necessity of that too.
I was just going to say the overall maturation of this program, because when you came in, I remember many times you talked about it. This group needs to stop accepting losses. They need to get thicker skinned. Just what has that process been like for you as a coach to see your team get that thicker skin and to not make losing acceptable?
And it's a work in progress, I think it's kind of always a work in progress, but it's a work in progress, and we're still working on it and still have to improve a lot.
Coach, going back to the O-line, kind of like a pitcher when you're watching him in the first inning might not have his stuff. Is there a certain thing that you're looking for where, okay, maybe the O-line doesn't have it completely today? Is there, as just a former coach from the O-line and an evaluator, is there something along the lines of that?
A lot of times they got to just clear their head. They just got to clear their mind. You know, I mean, I think the quick answer is Boise played harder than they did. Boise's D-line played harder than they did. And there shouldn't be anything, you know, as far as if you're a competitor that's really more insulting than that, or, you know, because you should take incredible pride in your play. But we, you know, can't shake the fact that Boise's D-line played harder than our O-line. And yeah, on a certain level, that's disgraceful. And we have to change that and put ourselves in a position that never happens.
Anything else for Coach?
Just gonna, with Hercules and Luvu, have you coached players that have just absolutely throttled players like they have? Because it seems like when they get a full-on hit, they just explode. And
well, they're really explosive guys. I think, you know, Frankie's quicker than most guys on the edge and has developed stronger and stronger. Hercules is unique just kind of from his understanding of leverage. He's got real quick first couple steps. He's not fast outright. First couple steps, and then just really good leverage. And when he's really, you know, gets a hold of a guy or moves a guy, he can go in there unobstructed. So instead of just a grazing shot, you know, he's able to get unobstructed shots, you know, just because he's got a pretty good feel for, you know, yanking a guy down and eluding a guy.
Two-part question here on Jameer Calvin. How many true freshmen have you had that have come on and had a significant role on the inside, like Jameer in your career? And then the second part to the question, how do you feel he's playing so far through his first 2 games?
I'd have to think on that one. How many? Had some. Wes Welker comes to mind, you know, as a true freshman for sure. I don't know. There's been some. I always lose track, you know, if they're freshmen or not, you know. Some, but as a true freshman, it's definitely impressive, you know.
Any other questions on the line for Coach?
Coach, how about Renard Bell? I mean, what did you guys see from him this fall camp or maybe in the spring that, you know, elevated him to that starting role?
Well, we redshirted him last year just because he wasn't ready to go, and I didn't think he was ready to go most of the season. Then he had a great spring, and thought he probably had the best game of all the receivers yesterday or the other day. Not just because of the yards, but you know, I thought he just played well as far as the receiver position went.
How is his skill set maybe different from Calvin's? Like, what did the two of them sort of bring to the table differently?
They're both kind of emerging as starters. They're both fast. They both went the same. Well, they're practically the same. They're both almost the same size. They're both fast. They both went to the same high school. Calvin's got kind of more stop and start. Renard's kind of a more straight-ahead guy. Both do a pretty good job of blocking. Renard's developed into a real good blocker.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, last chance for Coach. Okay, Lindsay?
If you could be a member of any band, which band would you choose?
Any band? Shoot, it depends what day. I mean, any band. You're talking about the on the stage thing, or you're talking about the throwing TV, trash in hotel rooms, throwing TVs out the window and bringing sharks up there and throwing them into bed with whoever happens to be laying there? What are you talking about here?
Just go with the second one.
Second one would be just being in a band. Shoot, I wouldn't mind being the guy on AC/DC that has the little briefcase that just goes back and forth across the stage. Obviously, the Beatles and the Stones, I mean, they're kind of towards the top of the deal, I mean, as far as, because they're the Beatles and the Stones. The Dead always seem to be having a great time. That's a great question. I think it'd all kind of be fun. But the one thing is other than lead singers, what's kind of amazing about those those guys in the bands is they can go anywhere and nobody knows who they are, you know, unless their hair's really screwy or something. I mean, they can go anywhere. And I've even run across, you know, one or two where, what? Oh, really? You're so, I mean, and then, well, that must be it, you know, and then, you know, getting some conversation. Well, not only did I not know, and nobody else did either, other than some guy that happened to introduce, you know. And so they do kind of live a sweet life of, you know, doing the whole arena thing and then having some anonymity, you know.
Who's the coolest musician you've met?
That I've met? That I've met? Probably Willie. You know, Willie's, two other great ones would be Toby Keith and Robert Earl Keane. Oh, and then there's a guy, Rusty Ware, before he died, used to, you know, wait. We'd go through Austin recruiting. He used to wait till we got there before he started playing. He was great. I don't. Willie's just got, you know. Everybody knows who Willie is, and Willie's just kind of real comfortable with himself. You know, just kind of always in control. Just always knows where he's going, what he's going to do, that type of deal. You know. And Toby Keith's just a good, fun guy. You know, he's a lot like his songs. You know.
I know bonus ones for me. If Dave Mark started a college
With who?
Dave Mark started a college football podcast, would you listen to it?
Yeah, probably.
Podcast guy?
Well, no, I never listened to any, but I don't want Gabe to feel bad, so yeah, I'd listen to it all the time.
Did you not listen to yourself on Part of My Take?
No, because I was already there for it, and so I knew what I guess I kind of did. I mean, I was there. I heard it.
One more on the phone.
I'm done.
One more from Steph on the phone. Go ahead, Steph.
Hey, Coach, some Arkansas fans started a petition trying to get the AD to take you to Arkansas, to hire you in Arkansas. Like, what do you make of that?
I don't make anything of it. I'm busy worrying about getting a first down against Oregon State. I'm worried about improving our team here and being the best team we can possibly be. So.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep.